Hey everyone, welcome to race 2 of the Palm Beach Road Racing Classic. If you missed the first race, then here's the track. I talked a little bit about it. It's pretty simple, it's totally flat. There's a couple of good passing zones in turns 1 and 10. At the moment we just headed onto the back straightaway and we're getting ready to take the start. The starting order is based on the finishing order of the last race, so as you can see the red car that I was stuck behind in the first race is starting right in front of me. This time he'll actually be, I think he's going to be beside me on the inside, so if I want to get him around him on the first corner, then I'm going to have to go around the outside. And you can see here we're approaching the hairpin at the end of the back straightaway, so we are getting ready to form up and we'll take the start right as we go around the corner. Fortunately this time I don't have to go past the Formula V's and the Formula 500. These are all the same cars in my class in front of me. So I think I really have to get right on the gearbox much better than I did. So the green flag is raised and we're taking off. I'm trying to keep my distance because I don't want to get in any trouble. But I'm also trying to see if I can get around. Left the guy a lot of room and he sort of squeezes me off track. There's that white Club Ford that I got past the first lap. The first half of this first race. I know I'm faster than him, so I'm not too worried about him getting by me. Just have to follow him closely through the S's onto the back straightaway and I'll be able to drive past him. Right now I'm really trying to get as close as I can, but still leaving enough room to get on the power. Because if the car in front of you is late getting on the power and you jam on it, then you're going to catch up to him before you can carry your momentum, and you're going to have to slam on the brakes. It's a pretty common tactic if you know that the car behind you has enough power to have a low minimum speed at the apex of the corner so that you sort of block him from getting on. And that fortunately didn't happen. I had enough power to get past him on the draft, even though my gearing is too low. Seems like that the white car that I just passed is a little bit down on power compared to the red car in front of me. Because I'm never quite as easily able to get past this red car, even though they're theoretically close to the same class. Well, they're at the same class, but they should be closer in performance. So you can see the lap counter in the bottom left. It's showing lap 3, even though this is lap 2. I think what I mentioned in the first video about how the GPS isn't working properly. I think we get up to lap maybe like 18 or 19 by the end of it, even though it's only a 15 lap race. Now the draft is sucking me in. Have so much patience on the throttle through that hairpin, otherwise the front end is just going to wash away. I think I've got the front springs really stiff on this car. That's how it was when I bought it, and I haven't really been able to change it yet or play with the setup enough, but I think if we can soften up the front of the car, that would help with the understeer. But for now understeer is okay because it makes the car safe and easy to drive, but eventually we're going to have to start dialing it out. So So if you've noticed, red line on this car is about, we shift around 6,700 RPM. And keep your eye on the RPM as we get to the end of the back straightaway. So we're in 4th gear now. And if the gearing is right, it should get to 6,700 just as we get to the end of the straightaway. But it just gets up to 66, which isn't that far off. But I was looking at the data earlier, and I think because I had the draft from the car in front of me, it lets the RPMs get up a little bit higher. But if I'm just running by myself, or if they get a little bit ahead of me, then the engine really struggles down the back straightaway. I think also 3rd gear might be too high, because anytime I come off the right-hander onto the back straightaway, these cars just drive away from me, and they shouldn't have much more power than I do. Especially since these guys are, I think, running the old Ford Kent engines, and the Honda Fit motor has been equalized to be roughly the same, but I believe that their performance is a little bit better. You can see I close up on him. That was way too fast, so I wasn't able to get back to power as soon as I would like. And now, coming out of the corner, he's just driving away from me. There isn't really anything I can do about it. I don't think I missed my brake point that time, but I didn't get on the brakes as hard as I should have. That's another thing that I need to really work on in my driving, is I'm not challenging the car under brakes as much as I should. When you get on the brakes initially, it's supposed to be, not slamming on the brakes, but it's supposed to be a very hard squeeze, as I drop some wheels there. But what I'm doing is I'm sort of just lazily kind of easing into the brake pedal. And you don't want to slam on it so hard that what happens is that you lock the brakes initially because you're not letting the weight transfer up to the front wheels. So you don't want to slam on them too hard, but I'm just sort of taking it to the other extreme right now. And you can see I'm sticking with this guy easily. I'm much faster in the corners, I just can't get past him on the straightaway. See, even before we get to the track out, he's starting to pull away from me, and he's just driving away. It would be frustrating if this were a competitive race. We're still in shakedown mode, so I'm just happy that the car is working as well as it is. And I'm not too bothered that this guy is holding me up. It is, I think, the key thing to learn from this is how important getting the right gear ratios are. When we were prepping for this race, I was having trouble finding the right gear ratios. I didn't really know who to ask. The engineer that has been helping us out with this, he said that the gears we have it in are fine. And they were fine, the car worked. But next time, now we're at the point where this stuff kind of matters. And if I want to be competitive, then we have to have the right gear ratios in. And another thing that I'm doing here is, as I'm following this guy, I'm looking at his car way too much. When you're following a car like this, what you want to do is sort of keep it in your peripheral vision, and while you want to focus on the same things that you would be focusing on if there was no car in front of you. You want to look at your brake points, you want to look at your turn-in apex through the corner, and you always want to keep your eyes as far down the road as possible. because for one, if there's any mistakes that anybody else ahead is making, or if there's a car stranded, then you'll see them and you'll be able to react, but also because the farther you look down the road, the slower the car feels like it's going. This guy looks like he's starting to get tired. That's a Formula V in front of us that's moved out of the way to let us go. He held out the other guy. And anytime you come up against traffic like that, you're trying to think of how can I manipulate the traffic to my advantage to either gain time or maybe sneak past him. But I wasn't able to do it that time. But what I was saying, you always want to keep your eyes as far down the road as you can, because it makes things feel slower. And anytime it feels slower, that means that your brain has more time to react, not only to what's coming ahead of you, but also to how the car is feeling. So if the car steps out and you're not using all of your brain power, then you'll have more time you'll be able to feel it quicker, you'll be able to react to it quicker, and you'll have more confidence and you'll be driving better. There's another 2 more Formula Vs that we're getting past. Excuse me. If you look on the telemetry at the bottom, you can see that target bullseye-looking thing with the little, I don't know what you call it, a little marble floating around. The numbers there are, the top one is longitudinal G, so if I slam on the brakes, that number will go up. And then the bottom one is lateral G, and I think it freaks out a little bit, but the overall numbers are pretty good. And you can see we're getting up to 1.5 Gs in the corners. So this car, you know, it's light. It's got these sticky tires, slick tires. Well, they're not super sticky, and they're not as big as like an Atlantic's car or the Pro Mazda car, but they're pretty effective. The car has a very low center of gravity. Almost up to 2 Gs. And one of the problems that I was having all weekend, so we had to take the seat out because it was lifting my body up in the car, and so I wasn't able to get into second gear, and so we had to take it out. And so I'm just sitting on the floor of the car with no support, and there are 2 rails at the bottom of the car that my hips are sort of wedged in between. And anytime I go around the corner, especially since most of the corners are right-handers, I'm being pushed constantly into the left side of the car. And it caused some fairly uncomfortable bruising on my left hip. A little bit on my right too, but mostly on my left. And I was having some trouble with my elbows banging against the inside of the cockpit too, but we bought some elbow pads designed for race cars, and they actually solved the problem perfectly. So the guy in front of me just drives off the track. I don't know what happened there, if something broke or... I mean, I wasn't anywhere near him. I wasn't putting that much pressure on him, I don't think. So I don't know if it was a mental mistake or something broke in his car, but he just drove straight off, and free position for me. Thank you very much. And of course, anytime you see something like that, your first thought is this going to bring out a yellow flag? And I'm looking at every flag station. I'm looking to see the yellow flags to see if they'll come out, and they eventually do. So I think I'm gonna cut out the yellow flag part because nothing really interesting happens, and I'll see you guys when we are coming around the last corner for the green flag. Alright, so it's been about maybe 3 or 4 laps under yellow. You can see the safety car on the right side of the screen is pulling into the pits. Down into second gear to get a good launch on the start, and waiting for these guys to take off. Of course, there they go, they catch me sleeping a little bit, and this helps the red car that was behind me. He catches up and gets the jump on me and pulls to the inside. And you can see I let him go since the guys in front of me were fighting, and as I said before, this is just still sort of just a test session, and I don't want to mix it up wheel to wheel with these guys too much. I am going to have to get into that, obviously, at some point, but better to play on the much more cautious side this time. And I think I also didn't mention that this is one lap to the checkered flag. So from, it's not a green-white checker, but it's a white checker, green checker, however you want to say. So I got about half a lap to get by this guy, and I know that I can get past him. I've got the engine over him, so if I get a decent exit out of this corner, I should be able to get him going into the braking zone for the hairpin at the end. Just have to wait patiently, get a good upshift, and wait patiently for the draft to start sucking me in. You can see it starts right about now. I start getting some momentum. He pushes me to the inside a little bit, but I'm just able to outbrake him by a mile. I wasn't even really trying that hard, frankly. Then there's one more corner here, and so I end up this race in 4th, which is great. It's one position ahead of the last race, and the car worked perfectly. I have a diagnostic page that I put on the dashboard that I was checking occasionally, and all the parameters that I put on that page were perfect. Water temperature was consistent, oil pressure was consistent. On this cooldown lap, the water temperature dropped, which is as you would expect because I wasn't running it as hard. Voltage was consistent, which is great because we're running a lithium-ion battery that is very, very small, which is great, and it's lightweight, but there are reports that if it's undercharged or overcharged, then it will catch fire. So that was something that we wanted to monitor fairly closely, but it's been working great so far. I think I mentioned this earlier, that this was the second race of the weekend. It was on Sunday morning, and there's another race in the afternoon, but a lot of these guys wanted to get home, so I think all but one other Formula Ford withdrew from the last race. So it's not really that exciting. It's 10 laps long, so it's longer than the first race, but shorter than this race. And it was just me following that other car. So I'll put it up, I'll put my thoughts over it, but it's not really the most exciting race, to be frank. But I'll put it up so you guys can watch it if you'd like. Yeah, I think that'll do it for this race. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.